Are you sure?
Here's the 30-second lesson on what legends know. Never ask a bride why she's getting married. Don't wear a skirt on a windy day. Deodorant is not a shower. Don't sniff chili flakes. And don't forget, saving is not investing. Legends don't just save, they invest in mutual funds. Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
Does the name Khalid Sheikh Mohammed ring a bell? Or maybe I can help by just using his initials, KSM. Figured now, KSM or Khalid Sheikh Mohammed has been probably the most dreaded, dangerous and storied terrorist of our generation, of an entire generation for humankind. He was held responsible, widely held responsible for plotting the 9/11 bombings and many other attacks before that, and some others that he might have been planning but did not happen. He was arrested, as many of the others, in Pakistan, in his case in Rawalpindi, in a joint ISI-CIA operation in 2003. Now, the important thing is that he has been under trial. He was arrested is a wrong word. He was taken into custody because these were not arrests as carried out usually in the law, because these were the American law, because many new laws were created after 9/11. They were taken into custody and taken away to American black sites for interrogation. We'll talk about some of that as we go along. Then he and his accomplices have been sitting in the maximum security military prison in Guantanamo Bay. Why are they in Guantanamo Bay? Which is a part of the real estate that the Americans have on the Cuban territory. This was leased to the Americans in 1903. Since then, the Americans have had it because they can't be held on American soil. Because if they are held on American soil, they will then be subject to seeking rights under the regular American laws. That's the reason he's been kept outside. So Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, along with his 4 key accomplices for 9/11, all 5 of them have been in Guantanamo Bay. Their trial has been planned for a long time. In 2012, some kind of a charge sheet was filed against them. These are trials to be held by a military court under special laws by a military judge. All 12 members of the jury are military people. So while the charge sheets or what passes off for charge sheets in this kind of trial, these were filed 12 years ago. Trials haven't quite started. In 2021, we had featured this in an episode of Cut the Clutter, of which I will share a link with you, where we had talked about the process of the trial starting. But as the trial started, there were pre-trials and lots of other formalities had to be completed. Now we were coming to the stage where trials would have started. And one of the reasons, now as you would have expect in these cases, defense was also trying to various ways to delay the trial, because these terrorists, as they are, they also found very sound legal help, because in the American liberal system, there were lots and lots of lawyers who said that this is the subversion of American law, subversion of justice. These people are not getting a fair trial or fair justice. They've been subjected to torture. Confessions have been extracted under torture, under various rounds of torture. Dexter Filkins, the well-known journalist, for example, wrote in an article in New Yorker magazine that Khalid Sheikh Mohammed himself was put under, he was subjected to 183 rounds of waterboarding. Waterboarding is a process of torture where the torturer simulates the conditions of drowning for the victim. So these lawyers were there, and among the ruses or among the tactics they used to delay the trial was to say that the lieutenant colonel who was appointed as the judge of the trial court, he wasn't experienced enough. So he was actually sent away to sit on some other military courts to get 2 more years of experience. He is now the judge in this case. I shall give you his name as we go along. Now, that judge has set up the trial. In the trial, as we had told you in that earlier episode also, there was a very elaborate system set up for where these accused sat. There was a hierarchy. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed sat in the middle, others sat in their own appointed places. there was also a gallery set up, like a balcony, protected gallery, glazed gallery set up for the family members of the victims of 9/11 killings, right? All of that was done. However, there were apprehensions on the side of the prosecution that because of the method through which, or methods through which these confessions and evidence had been extracted, there was an outside chance, at least an outside chance, that the judge will throw out these cases, these charges, and these people will be acquitted. At the same time, if you look at it from the defense's point of view and these accused terrorists' point of view, they knew that the odds, if anything, were that they will get convicted. If they got convicted, they will get the death sentence. What's happened in this case is that three of these five accused, terror accused for 9/11, three of the five have entered a plea bargain, which prosecution has now accepted. And prosecution has written letters to the family members of the victims of 9/11 saying that these three have signed these plea bargains and we are accepting this plea bargain. What is the plea bargain? The plea bargain is they will serve a life sentence, so they'll be in jail for life, right? At the same time, they will not be given death sentence. So they confess to their crimes. Not only do they confess to their crimes, but they also accept some other conditions. For example, answering questions asked by the family members of the victims. So by September 14, family members of the victims will send these questions. By the end of the year, these people have to answer those questions. So basically, they own up to their crime of terrorism in exchange for not being hanged. This serves the objective of a unique American concept, in this case of restorative justice. Now, while this was going on, a lot of other elaborate stuff has gone in the background. For example, while these negotiations were going on, American legal system, whether it's a regular American legal system or it's a sui generis system, as they figured out in Guantanamo Bay, or Gitmo as it called, for these Al-Qaeda detainees, American system has its own complexities. So in that system, some of these accused also wrote to the White House, because White House had to sign off on this deal, and demanded that while they are sent to jail for life, one, they should not be given solitary confinement, two, they should have access to their families, three, they should have access to their lawyers, and one of them, it's called Cheek, right? One of them even said that US government should arrange for therapy, continuous therapy, to help them recover from the after effects of the torture that they went through. Now, whether the White House has accepted this or not in this new deal, we don't know. But for a year, the White House stalled this. They did not approve this. Whether they did it this time, it will come out in the course of time. I suspect from what I'm reading so far, that hasn't yet happened, but I'm not sure. Now, that is where we are. Now, some of the family members are saying, all right, at least we have closure. These guys have accepted their crime, right? We know who carried out this act. Some of the others are saying, no, we don't feel justice is done because these people should have hanged. They are getting away cheaply, and if anything, they will now be in an American prison, and they'll be looked after by the US government, US taxpayer for the rest of their lives. So that debate will go on. However, right now, it looks like this plea deal is the done thing. However, the trial is not over yet. Even after these three, I told you, three of the five have made this plea deal. One has said that I will fight on, right? Maybe either he's too headstrong and he thinks, what the hell, shaheed hona hai to honge, I'll become a martyr if so be it. Or maybe there is a hope that he gets acquitted. I don't know. I'll give you their names. The fifth has been ruled by psychiatrists to be mentally unfit to face trial because he's apparently lost his mind, probably as a result of torture over many years. Because remember, these people have been in custody at American black sites. First, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, for example, was taken to a black site in Afghanistan called Salt Mine. From there, he was taken to a black site in Poland, and then to various places because they couldn't be brought to America, and finally to Guantanamo Bay. So these people have been in this kind of custody and undergoing and being subjected to torture for more than 2 decades now. So one of the 5, it seems, is certified as having lost his mind and unfit to face trial. Now, who are the 5 people? Let me give you the names and a little bit about their roles. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, the kingpin. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed was the head of the planes operation. The head of the planes operation, also he's wanted for many other things as well. We remember the killing of Daniel Pearl, the Wall Street Journal journalist in Karachi. Now, after the killing, another Pakistani, Omar Sheikh, familiar name, I will come to that. Omar Sheikh was convicted for killing Daniel Pearl. Then later, given all the peculiar things and strange things that go on in the Pakistani judicial system, he was also acquitted. In fact, we'd like to find out where he is. He was also acquitted. I suspect he's still locked up under some charge or the other. Remember, he was one of the people who was released in exchange of IC-814, which Jaish-e-Mohammed terrorists had hijacked, the Indian Airlines aircraft which they took to Kandahar. All these wires are interconnected, and that will also be the theme of this episode of Cut the Clutter as we go along. So please stay with me. Now, Omar Sheikh was convicted. Then later it turned out, at least that was the rumor, and that became a very strong rumor to such an extent that that came to be widely believed, that while he was convicted for beheading Daniel Pearl, the beheading was probably carried out by Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, KSM, in Karachi. There were pictures of Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, KSM, carrying or displaying the severed head of Daniel Pearl. In his interrogation to the Americans, he is supposed to have said that my blessed hand is holding the severed head of American Jew Daniel Pearl, or my blessed hand carried out the beheading of the American Jew Daniel Pearl. Now, somebody can say tomorrow that this was extracted under duress, but those pictures are there. So he's wanted in that case also. You remember another case, Richard Reed. Richard Reed was a Christian who converted to Islam. He was caught on an airplane with explosives in the heel of his shoe. Fortunately, he was caught before the explosives could go off. KSM is also supposed to have masterminded that. There are other operations which he's supposed to have masterminded. The February 26, 1993 bombing of the World Trade Center in New York, the same World Trade Center, the towers which the planes were slammed into. So they had chosen a target. The first time they tried in 1993, Feb 26, it did not work very well, but still it killed 6 people there. And there's a little connection for us in India that we must never miss, and we keep repeating that point again and again and again. Within 2 weeks of that, first of all, how was the bombing carried out in World Trade Center? A car was parked under the World Trade Center with 700 kilograms of explosives in it, and the expectation was when this blows up, the building will come down. The building did come down, a few glitches took place, but look at the modus operandi. Just 2 weeks after that, just 2 weeks later, this is 26 Feb 1993, on 12th of March 1993, just 2 weeks later, the serial bombings are carried out in Mumbai, or what used to be Bombay. And what were the areas targeted? Bombay Stock Market. Again, a tall building like that, Bombay Stock Market building, Air India building, Zaveri Bazaar. How were the explosives planted? They were planted in cars again. And again, these were RDX kind of explosives, very similar explosives to what was planted under the World Trade Center on Feb 26, 1993. So if you think the two are not connected, or the people planning the two are not connected, you must be very, very gullible. Now we are going chronologically, and time moves very fast. By 1995, he's come under the radar of the FBI and other international agencies. In 1995, it looks like one of the agents of FBI comes very close to capturing him. Where else but in Qatar? And when he comes close to capturing him, it looks like the US Embassy in Qatar gets into the act, and they don't want to annoy the Qataris royal family because, as you know, Qatar plays both sides. better than any other country does in the world. In fact, they can also play both sides against the third. So US ambassador gets involved and prevents the FBI agent from arresting him, because if the FBI had been able to arrest him at that point, then maybe many of the other terrible things that he did in the course of time would not have happened. How did he pop up to attention in 1995? That's when he is supposed to have planned or plotted something called Op Bojenka. Bojenka is a word that comes from Serbian language or some variant of Serbian language, Bojink, which means a big bang. This included, one, the assassination of Pope John Paul. It was all to happen the same day. The assassination of Pope John Paul. Two, a dozen airliners blowing up simultaneously in the Pacific, 1995. And three, taking a Cessna, a small plane, and crashing it into the CIA headquarters in Langley. All of it was plotted to be done on the same day. This was being planned in Philippines. This went wrong because the explosives being prepared for this in the Philippines, those went up, and as they went up, the plot blew up. From then it looked like the FBI was very close on his trail. In fact, the FBI agent who came very close to arresting him, catching him in Qatar, he has given an interview to the BBC, of which I had shared a link with you with the earlier episode, I think number 829, 3 years back, and I will share it again with you. And Frank Pellegrino, the FBI agent, said that he was on the verge of catching hold of KSM when the US ambassador in Qatar said, don't do it, because in our larger interests, we don't want the arrest to take place in Qatar, and he got away from there. Once he was caught in Feb 2003, he is supposed to have made more confessions. For example, he is also supposed to have confessed to have masterminded the Bali bombings, the Bali nightclub bombings of 2002. Once again, the questions will be raised about the quality of that confession, whether this will pass the test of any kind of justice or not, any kind of judicial process or not. So right now, everything is now being swept into one bucket, and he is confessing to mass murder. He is confessing, and two others with him who've also signed on this peace deal, they are also confessing. Now, who are the others? Before I go there, I shall tell you a little bit more about Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, because he is such a key figure. He's only 59 yet. So he was very young when he started. So he was 16 when he heard Abdul Rasul Sayyaf, one of the leader of one of the factions of the Afghan Mujahideen at that point. That was the most Islamist of the factions, way to the right in a way, even of Gulbuddin Hikmatyar. He heard his speech, a very fiery speech, and then he got influenced by this. After that speech, he joined Muslim Brotherhood, 16 to 17. He himself was born in Kuwait to Pakistani parents. His father used to work in Kuwait. He at the age of 17, joins Muslim Brotherhood and then makes his way to America. He makes his way to America, goes to University of North Carolina, Agriculture Technology University, and graduates in mechanical engineering from there. The important thing is that most of the terrorists involved in these operations were very well educated people. So this whole idea that this comes from ignorance, this comes from illiteracy, this comes from poverty or deprivation, all of that's not correct. These are all very well educated people. So he has a mechanical engineering degree from University of North Carolina. Now, while all of this is going on, you know that 1995, he's planning Operation Boyenka, right? Again, blowing up planes, hijacking planes, blowing them up. Later, in 2001, 9/11, he again hijacks planes, his people hijack planes. The plot is the same. Yet again, 1993, February, he's planting heavy explosives, cars carrying heavy explosives under a landmark building. 2 weeks later, terrorists, obviously linked with Pakistan, are trying to do a similar thing in Mumbai. 6 years later, in 1999 December, in a manner not very different from what was done in the US later for 9/11. An Indian Airlines plane is hijacked, in this case by Jaish-e-Mohammed. All of these people are interlinked because among the people Jaish-e-Mohammed wants freed in exchange for that plane is Omar Sheikh. Omar Sheikh is supposed to be an accomplice of KSM, working together with him in many operations, also in the killing and beheading of Daniel Pearl. So you can join all the dots, or you can tie all the strings. And that's the reason I have always believed, and I think for very good reason, that the minds planning all these operations in the US, in Europe, in Bali in this case, also in Mumbai and other parts of India, bombings in India's rails, and maybe going ahead later 26/11 as well, the minds were all very similar and the thinking was coming from the same place. And that is why what's happening right now to this lot is of great significance to us in India as well, and it's of great interest. So this is Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. Who are the others? One of the remaining four, in fact, is his nephew. That is Ammar al-Baluch. Ammar al-Baluch, that's a nom de guerre. Ammar al-Baluch. He's also officially, he's charged as Abd al-Azizi, right? He's the one who found the money and the wherewithal to transfer the money to all the hijackers who slammed the planes inside those buildings in the US. He was arrested on April 29, 2003 in Karachi, along with yet another accomplice, third of the five, Walid bin Atash. These two also were arrested together in April 2003, not long after KSM had been arrested in Karachi. Remember, Ammar al-Baluch is a nephew of KSM. In fact, KSM is his mama. His mom and KSM are siblings. So he was arrested. One more connection I must point out to you. Ammar al-Baluch was also married, if briefly, to Afia Siddiqui. Afia Siddiqui is an MIT educated biologist, top scientist, who was arrested on a terror charge for trying to shoot an American soldier or security person, and she is now serving as a convict an 86-year prison sentence in Texas, Fort Worth, Texas. So this is a distinguished family. Ammar al-Baluch is the nephew. The nephew, however, has not signed up on this plea bargain. The nephew is willing to face trial. Let us see what happens in that case. So once again, for clarity, the three of the five who've signed up on the plea bargain, one, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed himself, we told you a lot about him. He was the kingpin of the planes operation, as it was called. Second, Walid bin Atash, he was a trainer of the hijackers. He also goes by an alias Khalad. He is from Saudi Arabia, went to Afghanistan at a very young age, started fighting in the jihad there, lost one of his legs there, also lost one of his brothers there. Another brother of his is also detained in Guantanamo Bay. So that's again a distinguished family, however, not from Pakistan in this case, but from Saudi Arabia. The third to agree to the plea deal is Mustafa al-Hawsawi. Mustafa al-Hawsawi is also from Saudi Arabia. He, however, seems to have suffered a fair bit of damage in his interrogation. He suffered some rectal damage. That's the reason he's made to sit on the side. The charges against him are also sort of the lightest. He's made to sit on the side. He's also given a special cushion to sit on. And also, he's not made to sit for that long because he complains of discomfort, and he and his lawyers claim that he has suffered this rectal damage as a result of the torture. So three of them, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, Walid bin Atash and Mustafa al-Hawsawi, have signed the plea bargain. Ammar al-Baluch says that he will face trial, and Ramzi bin Shib has been declared mentally unfit to be put on trial. So this is the story of these infamous five, and I thought this is a good day for us to look at how this story is coming to its conclusion or closure.